friends and neighbors of the authentic world. This is Sarah Ness coming at you with another BeingNess video. And I'm all sweaty and charged up right now because I just biked and have been feeling really inspired lately. And one of the things I've been stoked about is I've been having some conversations about the use of authentic relating and circling as tools, not just as practices of their own, but actually for different purposes. Like, authentic relating games and sentence stems as an intro to a business conversation or as a conflict resolution tool. Circling as a way to bring groups closer together, as a way to bond families, as, whatever. And the thing that's really alive for me right now is authentic relating and circling as a way to relieve social anxiety. And the reason that this is close to my heart is I have a lot of social anxiety. It doesn't come out so much with people I know, but when I'm around people that I don't, I can literally get so anxious that I have to leave the situation. I spent 5 months in Toronto and actually became incapable of going out doing social events because I would get in the room, I would know nobody, I would look around, and I would just internally panic. And I would have to leave. I would, stick it out for half an hour, 45 minutes, be like, okay, breathe with it, the sensation's gonna change, and then like, nope, gonna go home. And when I first started doing authentic relating, I started doing it because it was the one place that I didn't feel anxious around other people. And for me, anxiety manifests as an almost unbearable feeling of tension in my solar plexus. So I literally feel if I touch my stomach when I'm in social situations where I don't know many people, it is tight as a board. My breathing becomes really constricted, and it almost feels like I'm going to suffocate. So when I get out of there, it's not so much even because of the mental thoughts, it's actually a lot because of the physical reaction. There's even like a little bit of it now talking to you all, like a self-consciousness. I'm staring at my face on the screen. I don't know who's listening. And it helps me to slow down and take a breath. And that's actually what I want to talk about with these tools. If you have social anxiety, I think there's kind of two main reasons that I see, and there's probably many more, but I'm going to talk about two. One is not knowing the rules of the interaction, especially if, like me, you grew up without a lot of real training in how you're supposed to interact socially. Like, I was the awkward kid who read all the time. I never really got whatever handbook normal people were supposed to get about how you connect, how do you relate, what's faux pas, when do you stop talking, when do you, all of this stuff that I think most of us don't actually get, or we get a version of it that doesn't apply to us as adults. And so when I started having connections with people, I found myself just being weird because, I grew up on fantasy and science fiction. I didn't grow up on talking to people. And even that, like, do I smile? Do I not? How are people going to react? What is in my authenticity? It's this really dizzying field of options. And one thing authentic relating does is it narrows the options. It basically says, okay, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be curious about you. You don't have to ask me questions in return. All you have to do is answer the question or say, no thank you, ask me another. It massively simplifies social interactions. And I think the benefit of it is, number one, you can use those games wherever. Often if I'm anxious in an interaction, I'll say, hey, do you guys want to play a game? Easiest opener in the world. My favorite social game to play is sentence stems. You say, I'm going to give the start of a sentence, and we're going to go around, and everybody's going to complete it, and then I'm going to complete it in the last, and then someone else can give a sentence. So sentences being like, my idea of a perfect day off is, like what that looks like, or what I think isn't being said in this group. I've had great results with the elephant in the room is, or the person I feel closest to here is. It's just a way of kind of getting conversation kickstarted, and then after that you can shift the conversation and interact more organically. I lost my train of thought a little bit because I'm following multiple different threads with that. But one thing is to introduce a game explicitly. And the other thing is if you practice these skills over time, I think you find that social interaction gets easier because you start having non-traumatic social interactions, ones in which you know the rules, and then as you get outside of the rules, ideally you're able to bring some of that physiological comfort with you into new situations. So that's one benefit of using the games. And then another thing I would say is often what's happening for me in a social situation is I'm having an intense reaction, and my focus is only 20 to 50% on what the other person is saying, maybe more, but there's a significant portion of it that's just on my own survival. It's like, let me keep breathing. Let me just figure out what's happening inside of me. Why am I feeling like this? What's happening? What are the thoughts in my head? It's like there's so much activity happening in here that I don't have energy left for what's happening outside of there. And this is like a really core concept for me in situations in general, is the more energy you're spending on one thing, the less you have for something else. And this can use for like, if you have consistently self-conscious or destructive thoughts, of course you don't have as much energy for your life, because a lot of your energy is going towards the thinking or towards the trying to manage the thoughts or the anxiety or whatever it is. And so you're just worn out by your internal process. Doesn't even matter what's happening in the external process. So I think one other thing that authentic relating and circling can be helpful for in social situations is those practices are more than anything just like a slow down. When we're doing them, we're putting attention on what's happening right here, and we're often pausing, we're inquiring deeper about the sensation, I'm talking slower, I'm lowering my voice, and there's a way that the outside and the inside worlds start to attune, where rather than the outside world going so fast and so much happening I can't pay attention to me, or the outside world being concerned about something different than what's happening in me, I get this space to put 100% of my attention on where 50% already is, my own internal experience. And I've taken this out in such a way that now when I'm in an intense social interaction, I can pause, I can close my eyes, I can say what I'm feeling so that we can bring more attention to it, I can take a breath, I can basically do things to acknowledge that my speed and my attention are not on the outside, they're on the inside, and that I need to pay attention to that first, or at least take a moment with it, and then I can move my attention to the outside. And maybe it doesn't happen right away, maybe I have to go in and out a couple more times before I can gradually start dropping some of the thoughts and spending a little more time on the outside. And this is hard, especially for people with social anxiety, because it means breaking the rules. The rules are you go with the flow of conversation, wherever that's going. And the flow of conversation is often not going to, what's your internal state right now? So you actually have to break what's going on. You have to take authority and take time for that breath. And that can be very difficult at first. It may be something where you have to end the interaction you're in and go and take time by yourself and then come back to it. But even just being able to put a pause button and say, hey, give me just a second. Having an experience. If all you do is practice that phrase again and again, that's something at least I'm working on right now, is allowing myself to slow down in interactions, allowing myself to suggest a different way to interact, whether it be a game for others to play or a game for myself to play, and just giving myself kindness and understanding, which is also gained from self-awareness, whether it's meditation or circling or any practice you do, that it's not necessarily something wrong with me. There's just different places that my attention is going. And maybe other people walk around feeling just as anxious and just as uncertain, and we never talk about it, so we don't know. If it does happen for you, I hope you'll tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to have shared reality and feel not alone in this.